Historically, the U.S. has been one of the most welcoming nations in the world to immigrants. In fact, this country was built on the backs of those who came here from abroad. Every year, Homeland Security estimates that over 1 million people immigrate to the U.S. legally in pursuit of a job, a home, a family, or the American dream. But for millions of others, that dream is becoming a nightmare because of how broken our immigration system has become. The question over how to reform immigration transcends party lines. Yet while the proposals for improvement seem more just like a political chess move, at stake are the lives of 11 million undocumented human beings. In recent weeks, the issue has become even more politicized after the Senate introduced a new immigration bill. And despite a recent rally here in D.C. that drew tens of thousands of demonstrators urging for reform, it's unclear if U.S. lawmakers will find a compromise. So what does this mean moving forward? And what type of immigration reform can we expect, if any? To help me gain some insight, I'm joined now by Carpentier, executive editor at Raw Story. Megan, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So at the end of Obama's first term, he introduced the DREAM Act, which didn't pass. But the debate's reinvigorated with this new legislation. How does it compare to the DREAM Act, and does it have a better chance of passing?
Well, the administration managed to put some of the reforms for Dreamers into effect. And Dreamers is kind of a catch-all term for children of undocumented immigrants who are themselves undocumented, but who have lived their entire lives in America, grown up in many cases not even necessarily knowing that they're undocumented until they apply for licenses or they apply for federal financial aid and then discover that they've been in the country illegally, even if they have no ties to their original homes. So what the administration has done is developed a system by which these people can apply for residency, although not legal immigration in terms of becoming a citizen, but at least there's some path for them to stay, to go to college, to contribute the way that many of them were planning to anyway.
And I read a breakdown of the bill kind of encompassing the good, bad, and I guess the ugly. In your eyes, what aspects of the bill are most beneficial to immigrants right now?
I think what most undocumented immigrants have been looking for the longest is some way to achieve legal status. Being undocumented means they're more subject to exploitation by employers. It means they're constantly looking over their shoulders for law enforcement. It means they don't have the stability to build a life here, to contribute in larger ways to society. And so that there's finally some path to, getting documents to be able to stay here legally, and for some a small number eventually citizenship, is actually a huge step forward from the last round of real immigration reform, where all of that was taken off of the table the minute Republicans started crying amnesty.
Now let's talk about the bad. I mean, one aspect is mandating an e-verify for businesses, which could turn into a national ID card system. I mean, what implications might this have not only for immigrants, but I guess for average Americans?
The problems with E-Verify go back since its inception. I mean, a lot of these problems have been experienced by people where the computer reads their social security number wrong, someone puts down the wrong gender, and all of a sudden, even if you've lived here your whole life and have documents to prove it, the system comes back and rejects you. And you see, in fact, with a lot of trans Americans who, because of federal laws, can't change their gender on the IDs, there's had to be reforms to E-Verify because people were going into work and their employers were coming back and saying you've been rejected as an undocumented immigrant because your gender doesn't match with what your ID says you ought to be. And the system was outing people that weren't out at the office.
And you mentioned Republicans before. I mean, it's interesting that this bill seems to be getting a lot of bipartisan support. Why do you think we're seeing more Republicans endorse it? Do you think that they're just beginning to reach out to the Latino vote simply because they know that they can't keep ignoring such a large and growing demographic?
I think that there's always been a segment of the Republican Party that has been interested in some sort of immigration reform, not the least of which because employers want some sort of reform in place, because obviously employing undocumented workers has risks for employers that a part of the bill will impose, but also because a lot of these companies need low-wage workers, and Americans are increasingly unwilling or unable to work for minimum wage and maintain their families.
And we always hear the same tired argument from, I mean, of course, aside from saying everything that is a step in reform, in the direction of reform, is amnesty, aside from that kind of ludicrous talking point, we always hear the same tired argument: immigrants take our jobs. I mean, how important are immigrants to the health of this economy?
I think a lot of data, if you look at it from a nonpartisan perspective, a lot of data shows that immigrants every day are contributing to this economy, both documented and undocumented. These are the people on whom we rely for a lot of the basic things that happen in every American's lives, whether that's the janitor that you see in your building or, you know, somebody that's making sure that the food that gets to your table is safe and healthy and clean. I mean, workers that are immigrants, undocumented otherwise, are doing these kinds of jobs. And this has been going on for years. There's no way to simply say, okay, we're going to get rid of everybody in this country who's undocumented tomorrow. And then all of a sudden, you know, American labor will just fill in those gaps. The reason undocumented workers have been coming is because Americans haven't been filling in those gaps.
Right, but Megan, don't you want to go in the fields and pick strawberries at 5 cents an hour? I mean, it's just these kinds of jobs that it's just such a ludicrous argument. It's like, really, those are the jobs that you think that are being stolen from you? Really interesting. But considering how Obama, I mean, deported more immigrants than almost every previous administration and increasingly militarizing the border with drones, do you see any contradiction between his rhetoric and his actions?
Well, in fact, what Republicans have been saying for years, and probably that's why Obama has taken some of these actions, is that without border security, they will not acquiesce to any sort of reform for immigrants coming to this country, immigrants already in this country. And so, in fact, what the bill says is there won't be any of these reforms. None of the good things will happen until all of the border security and the drones and the deportations have been stepped up. So that's simply the trade-off that Republicans have demanded for years, and Obama has essentially been giving them that for a couple of years now.
So it kind of goes hand in hand with his actions and the rhetoric moving forward with the bill. Well, thank you so much for coming on, breaking down a little bit of the rhetoric. I hope that we do see some progress on this very important issue and it doesn't get swept under the radar, considering all the rhetoric about let's delay it from the Boston bombings, all of that. Really appreciate your time. Megan Carpentier, editor, Raw Story.
Thank you.